Today we're going to be learning about quartiles. Quartiles separate data into 4 equal parts, where Q1 represents the middle of the lower half of the data. Q2 represents the middle of the data, also known as the median. And Q3 represents the middle of the upper half of the data. Within each of the quartiles lie 25% of the data. Therefore, between the minimum value and Q1 lies 25% of the data. Between the minimum value and Q2 lies another 25% of the data, which adds up to be 50% of the data. Between the minimum value and Q3 lies another 25%, which totals to 75% of the data. And between the minimum value and the maximum value, there is a total of 100% of the data that lies between these two values. The box and whisker plot below is a graph that displays the 5-number summary. The 5-number summary is indicated by the minimum value of the lower extreme, the lower quartile or Q1, the median, which is also known as Q2, the upper quartile, known as Q3, and the maximum value or the upper extreme value, which happens to be 11 in this particular example. We're now going to go over 6 examples. The first 3 examples, we're going to use the visual approach to solve the problems. And the next 3 examples, we're going to use Desmos to solve the problems. We're going to begin with number 1. In the data set below, what is the upper quartile? The first thing that we need to do is find out how many data points we have in this particular problem. So we count the data points and we discover that there are a total of 10 data points. We notice that these data points are already in order from smallest to largest. It's really important to make sure that your data points are in order. Since they are already in order, all we have to do now is separate the data. When I separate the data, I notice that my lower half, there are 5 numbers in my lower half, and there are also another 5 numbers in the upper half. The question asks us to find the upper quartile. Upper quartile means Q3. Therefore, I'm going to look in the upper half of the data and find the middle number. You can cross out the 4, cross out the 7, cross out the 4, cross out the 6, and I find out that the middle value of my upper half equals 4. Therefore, the upper quartile or Q3 equals 4. The next example, we're going to solve this problem the same way. And the reason why I'm showing you these examples using the visual approach is because sometimes it's a bit easier if the numbers are already in order to use the visual approach in order to answer the question much faster. So I count the data points and I find out that I have 6 data points. I separate the data points in half since they're already in order. We're looking for the lower quartile. So since we're looking for the lower quartile, we're going to look to the left, which is the lower half. We're looking for Q1, and I cross out my 54 and 83, and the number in the middle is 58. Therefore, Q1 or the lower quartile is 58 in this particular example. Example number 3. In the data set below, what is the lower quartile? You may notice that in this example, all the numbers are already in order from smallest to largest. So I'm going to count how many data points I have, which I have a total of 13. Since I have an odd number of data points, in order to split the data in half, I'm going to split down the middle at the 7th data point, which happens to be at 6. We're looking for the lower quartile, which is the middle of the lower half of the data. My lower half is on the left. My upper half is on the right. I'm looking for the lower quartile of Q1. Therefore, I start to cross out my numbers from left to right, one on the left, one on the right, until I reach the center. In this particular example, I have two numbers in the center, which happen to be 2 and 4. So when there are two numbers in the center, in order to find out what that quartile equals, you have to average the two numbers. So I'm going to add 2 plus 4, divide by 2, and my answer comes out to be 3 for Q1, or the lower quartile equals 3. These are how I would solve the first couple problems on IXL using the visual approach, because it's a little bit easier to visually answer the questions, or you may be able to answer the questions a bit quicker using this method. Now for example number 4, we're going to look at the data set 84, 37, 38, 67, 50, 51, 69, 68. And you should notice that this data set is not in order. Because it's not in order, we're going to use Desmos.com to find the answer. Take a moment and record the numbers, and I'm going to show you how we can input this data set into Desmos to find out what the upper quartile is. So I'm going to go to Desmos.com, click on Start Graphing, and we're going to insert a table by going to the left side, clicking on the plus, and click on Table. So once you add a table, on the left side under the X sub 1, we're going to enter our data points. 84, 37, 38, 67, 50, 51, 69, and 68. So typically, we know that in order to find the median Q1 or Q3, we really need to put the numbers in order. But because we're using Desmos, we don't need to put the numbers in order. You just list the numbers as they appear. Make sure that you include the first number in the data set at the top. Please don't leave this number blank or you may get an error. So once I put the numbers in the first dialog box in a table, what I need to do now is go to the second dialog box, number 2. And what I want to do now is type the word quartile, Q-U-A-R-T-I-L-E. Make sure that you spell the word correctly. After that, what I want to do is I want to get an open parentheses. You type X. And when you type a 1, it should be a subscript 1. The reason why you're doing that is I type my data in this list in the table, and the name of that is X1. So in order to calculate my quartile, I want to type the word quartile, X1, a comma, and in this particular problem, we're looking for the upper quartile. So I want to type a 3. So it's X sub 1, comma 3, close parentheses, and this gives me my answer, 68.5. So my answer is 68.5, and just remember, when you're typing in the second dialog box, you need to spell the word quartile. X1 indicates where you typed your data, and comma 3 represents the upper quartile, Q3. So the correct answer for number 4 is 68.5. The next example is number 5. In this example, we have a data set and some of our data points are decimals. That's fine, and we're going to find out, or you may notice that the numbers are not in order. So all we have to do is type these numbers into decimals. I've already typed these numbers into decimals. We're looking for the lower quartile, which is Q1. When I've typed them into decimals, this is what your screen should look something like this. And when you type quartile this time, because we're looking for the lower quartile, it's in parentheses x sub 1 comma 1, and you get the lower quartile equals 45. And the 1 represents Q1, which is the lower quartile. Therefore, the answer for number 5 equals 45. Last but not least is number 6. In order to answer number 6, you have to answer 3 parts of the question. What we're going to do is use decimals for this one. Again, we're using decimals because the numbers are not in order. So to answer this question, I'm using decimals.com. I go to the plus sign in the left side of the screen. I'm going to add a table, and then I'm going to enter my data points, which happen to be 9, 5, 5, 2, 9, 1, 2, 9, 4, 3, and 6. So these are the numbers that I put into the table to calculate my values to answer the questions. The first part of the question asks me to find the lower quartile. So in order to find the lower quartile, I go into the dialog box, the second dialog box, and I'm going to type the word quartile. Since my data is in x sub 1, I type x 1. When you type 1, it's going to make it a subscript. Type a comma and comma 1. Close parentheses. And what you're going to find out is that your answer is 2. The next thing they're going to ask us to do is find the median. You can find the median by typing the word median x1, median x1, close parentheses. And it gives me my median value is 5. And finally, to find the upper quartile, you can type quartile x1 is where my data is found. And you type 3. And it tells me that my quartile 3 is 9. So my answers are 2, 5, and 9. So the answers for this particular problem, the 6th example, is 2, 5 for the median, and 9 for the upper quartile. I would take a moment and write some notes down, especially for the first slide, and make sure that you review the video if you're having trouble. This video matches lesson KK3.